My husband's pregnant secretary walked into my 50th birthday party on the arm of my private investigator. "Happy birthday, Margaret," she said, placing a hand on her swollen belly. "I thought it was time you knew everything." But she had no idea that I'd hired my investigator 3 months ago, and this entrance was exactly what we'd planned. The crystal chandeliers of the Wildflower Hotel's grand ballroom cast prismatic light across 200 of Chicago's most influential faces, all gathered to celebrate my 50th birthday. I stood at the entrance, a vision of controlled elegance in my sapphire Valentino gown. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Greeting guests with the practiced smile I'd perfected over 25 years as Lucas Morrison's wife. "Margaret, darling, you look absolutely radiant," cooed Vivian Blackwell, the mayor's wife, air-kissing my cheeks. 50 never looked so good. "You're too kind, Vivian," I replied, my diamond earrings catching the light as I tilted my head. The earrings were a gift to myself. Lucas had forgotten my birthday for the 3rd year running, though his secretary Janet had dutifully sent flowers with his name on the card. Speaking of Janet. At precisely 8:47 p.m., the heavy oak doors of the ballroom swung open with theatrical timing. Janet Caldwell entered, her navy blue dress stretching across a belly that couldn't be more than 6 months along. But it wasn't her pregnancy that made the room's conversation falter. It was the man, whose arm she held, Kevin Donnelly, my private investigator. "Happy birthday, Margaret," Janet announced, her voice carrying across the suddenly hushed ballroom. She placed a perfectly manicured hand on her swollen belly, her engagement ring. Correction, her new engagement ring, that looked suspiciously like the anniversary band Lucas had lost last year, catching the light. "I thought it was time you knew everything." The champagne flute in Mayor Blackwell's hand trembled slightly. Vivian's mouth formed a perfect O of shock. My best friend Diane actually grabbed her husband's arm for support. What Janet didn't know, what none of them knew except Kevin and me, was that I had hired my investigator 3 months ago after discovering certain irregularities in our household accounts. This entrance? This moment of revelation? It was exactly what we'd planned. "Janet," I said warmly, gliding forward with the grace that had won me the Miss Illinois crown 30 years ago. "How wonderful of you to come, and in your condition too. Please, let me get you a chair." Janet's confidence wavered slightly. This clearly wasn't the reaction she'd expected. Thank you, but I'm fine standing." "Nonsense," I insisted, gesturing to a waiter. "Being on your feet this late in pregnancy must be exhausting. How far along are you now? 6 months?" "7, she corrected, her chin lifting defiantly. 7, I repeated thoughtfully. My, how time flies. That would mean you conceived right around, let's see, Lucas's business trip to Miami? Her face flushed. "Margaret, Oh, don't be embarrassed, dear," I interrupted smoothly. "Though I do wonder why you chose tonight to share your happy news. After all, Kevin has been keeping me informed of your situation for quite some time." The shock on her face was delicious. She turned to Kevin, who merely shrugged with professional detachment. "Sorry, Janet," he said in that gravelly voice that had convinced dozens of unfaithful spouses to trust him. "Mrs. Morrison has been my client since February." I watched the realization dawn on her face. The grand entrance she'd planned, the dramatic revelation designed to humiliate me in front of Chicago's elite, had been orchestrated by me all along. "Why don't you tell everyone why you really came tonight?" I suggested pleasantly. "I believe you had an announcement about Lucas?" Janet's lower lip trembled. She was only 28, young enough to be my daughter, yet she'd thought she could outmaneuver someone who'd spent 25 years navigating the treacherous waters of high society. "Lucas and I are getting married," she said, trying to recapture her earlier bravado. "He's filing for divorce on Monday." A collective gasp rippled through the ballroom. I smiled. "How interesting," I said. "Though I should mention that Illinois is not a no-fault divorce state when adultery is involved. And Kevin here has quite the collection of photographs from those late nights at the office. Would you like to see them?" "This isn't how this was supposed to go," Janet whispered. "No, dear, I don't suppose it is." I turned to address my guests, my voice carrying clearly across the room. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for this interruption to our celebration. As you can see, my husband's former secretary as of Monday morning, has chosen rather poor timing for her announcement." I looked back at Janet. "Did Lucas tell you about the prenuptial agreement? The one his father insisted on? It has some very specific clauses about infidelity." Janet's face had gone pale. He said it wouldn't matter." I nodded, sympathetically. "He also said he was working late all those nights, didn't he? Men can be so economical with the truth." I gestured to Kevin, who reached into his jacket and pulled out a manila envelope. "Janet, darling," I said, accepting the envelope from Kevin. "This contains copies of every hotel receipt, every jewelry purchase, every dinner charge to our joint account." "Did you really think I wouldn't notice $6,000 at Tiffany's when my birthday present was a bouquet of roses sent by you?" The room was so silent you could hear the soft clink of ice in glasses. "You orchestrated this whole thing," Janet said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Of course I did," I replied. "You see, dear, while you were planning your dramatic entrance, I was planning something far more comprehensive." "Kevin?" My investigator cleared his throat. "Mrs. Morrison also asked me to look into certain financial irregularities at Morrison Industries. Turns out Mr. Morrison has been embezzling company funds to maintain his extracurricular activities." Janet staggered slightly, and this time I genuinely did feel a twinge of sympathy. The girl was pregnant, after all, even if it was with my husband's child. "Sit down, Janet," I said more gently, guiding her to a chair. "I'm not a monster, but I am a woman who spent 25 years building an empire with a man who chose to throw it all away for his secretary." I turned back to my guests. "Now, who's ready for cake?" The tension in the room broke as nervous laughter rippled through the crowd. Waiters, bless their professional hearts, immediately began circulating with fresh champagne. But I wasn't finished yet. This was only the beginning of a carefully orchestrated downfall that would play out over the next several hours, revealing layer after layer of deception until Lucas Morrison's perfect life crumbled as completely as his mistress's grand entrance. "Oh, and Janet?" I called as she sat stunned in her chair. "Happy birthday to me." The orchestra resumed playing Cole Porter as if nothing had happened, though the musicians kept glancing toward Janet's chair, where she sat breathing heavily, one hand pressed against her belly. I accepted congratulations from guests who seemed torn between scandal-driven excitement and secondhand embarrassment, their eyes darting between me and my husband's pregnant mistress. "Margaret, you absolute savage," my best friend Diane whispered, squeezing my arm. "How long have you been planning this?" 3 months, I replied, taking a delicate sip of champagne. "Since February 15th, to be exact. That was the day I'd discovered the first hotel receipt. Not through snooping. I'd never been that kind of wife. No, it had fallen out of Lucas's jacket when I was taking his suits to the dry cleaner. The Ritz-Carlton, Presidential Suite, February 14th, Valentine's Day." While I'd been at a charity board meeting he claimed he couldn't attend due to urgent business matters, he'd been sharing champagne and strawberries with his secretary in a 3,000 a night suite. At first, I'd felt the predictable emotions: shock, rage, humiliation. But then something else had taken over. A cold, calculating clarity I hadn't felt since my days as a corporate attorney, before I'd sacrificed my career to support Lucas's ambitions. Margaret Hastings Morrison wasn't just some trophy wife to be discarded. I'd graduated summa cum laude from Northwestern Law. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. I'd been the youngest partner at Whitman & Associates before I retired to raise our children and host dinner parties for Lucas's clients. Our sons, James and Oliver, were both following in my footsteps. James at Yale Law, Oliver finishing his MBA at Wharton. I watched Janet shift uncomfortably in her chair as another wave of guests approached to offer birthday wishes, carefully, ignoring the elephant in the room. Kevin had positioned himself near the windows, playing his role perfectly, the embarrassed investigator who'd been caught by his target. In reality, he was documenting every reaction, every whispered conversation. "Mrs. Morrison?" Kevin had said during our first meeting. "I've been doing this for 20 years. The cheating husband is predictable. The pregnant mistress who wants to force his hand? Even more so. We can use this." He'd been right. Janet's pregnancy had made her desperate, and desperate people make mistakes, like stealing my personal stationery, to forge letters from me to Lucas's attorney, expressing my wish for an amicable divorce. Like accessing my social calendar through Lucas's shared account to plan this dramatic confrontation. I'd let her think she was winning, even helped her, in subtle ways. When she'd called the Wildflower Hotel to confirm the details of my birthday party, I'd made sure the event coordinator gave her accurate information. When she'd tried to pump our housekeeper, Greta, for details about our marriage, I'd provided Greta with a script full of sighs and complaints about Lucas working late. The birthday celebration continued around us with the surreal quality of a play where someone had forgotten to tell half the actors about a major script change. The mayor was attempting to discuss urban development with my throat-slashing friend Diane, while both of them kept glancing at Janet. The society photographer Lucas had hired, part of his PR rehabilitation plan, no doubt, was clearly torn between capturing the elegant celebration I'd planned and the scandal unfolding before his lens. "More champagne, ma'am?" A waiter appeared at my elbow. "Thank you, Antonio," I smiled, allowing him to refill my glass. I'd learned all the staff names weeks ago, knowing they'd be my witnesses tonight. Waiters see everything but are rarely seen themselves, the perfect observers. Janet was attempting to stand, presumably to leave, when another carefully orchestrated moment arrived. My son Oliver burst through the ballroom doors, his business suit rumpled from travel. "Mom!" he called out, then stopped short at the sight of Janet. He knew exactly who she was. I'd briefed both boys weeks ago. But Oliver had inherited my talent for strategic drama. "Oliver, darling," I said warmly, opening my arms for a hug. "I thought you were in London closing the Harrington deal." "Wrapped it up early," he said, embracing me before turning to look at Janet with perfectly feigned confusion. "Sorry, have we met? I'm Oliver Morrison." Janet's hand instinctively went to her stomach. "I'm Janet. I work for your father." "Oh, you're the secretary." Oliver's voice carried just enough edge to make several nearby guests wince. "Dad's mentioned you. You helped with all those late-night presentations, right? The ones that kept him at the office past midnight?" The accusation in his tone was impossible to miss. Janet flushed crimson. "Your father and I," she began, "are having a baby," Oliver finished coolly. "Yes, Mom told me. She also told me about the forensic accountant she hired. Fascinating what they can uncover when they really dig into the books." "Oliver," I said gently, playing the role of the mother trying to maintain civility. "Perhaps we should discuss this later." "Why?" he asked, his voice carrying across the hushed ballroom. "Janet came here to make an announcement. Shouldn't we all know the truth? Like how Dad's been using the company acquisition fund to pay for his mistress's apartment." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Several board members from Morrison Industries were present, and I saw them exchanging alarmed looks. "That's not Lucas. Would never," Janet stammered. "Wouldn't he?" Oliver pulled out his phone, projecting the calm professionalism of the corporate lawyer he'd become. "I have the receipts right here." $8,500 a month for a Gold Coast apartment, listed as client entertainment facility in the company books. Richard Blackstone, the chairman of Morrison Industries Board, stepped forward. "Oliver, are you saying Lucas has been misappropriating company funds?" "I'm saying there are some interesting discrepancies that warrant investigation," Oliver replied carefully. "My mother's attorney will be in touch on Monday with full documentation." Janet stood abruptly, swaying slightly. "I need to go." "Oh, Janet," I called as she started for the door. "Happy anniversary, by the way." She froze. "What?" "Your 1-year anniversary with Lucas. March 15th, wasn't it? When he first kissed you in the supply closet. I have the security footage if you'd like a copy for your scrapbook." Her face went white as she realized the full extent of my knowledge. Without another word, she fled the ballroom, her dramatic exit somewhat diminished by her ungainly pregnant waddle. I turned back to my guests, raising my champagne flute. Well, that was exciting. Who's ready for the surprise portion of tonight's entertainment? Nervous laughter rippled through the crowd. They had no idea that Janet's departure was just the opening act. The real show was about to begin. "You see," I continued, my voice carrying clearly through the ballroom, "when planning my 50th birthday celebration, I decided to give myself the gift of truth. Complete, unvarnished truth about my life, my marriage, and my future." I nodded. To Antonio, who dimmed the lights as a large screen descended from the ceiling. "I've prepared a little presentation," I announced. 25 years of marriage in pictures. Though I should warn you, some of these images were provided by my investigator, so they might not be quite what you're expecting. The first slide appeared, Lucas and me on our wedding day, both young and hopeful. The second slide, Lucas with his arm around Janet at last year's company Christmas party, his wedding ring conspicuously absent. "Now," I said, clicking to the E. "Next slide. Let's talk about what really happened on those business trips to Miami." The presentation began innocently enough. Our wedding photos, early years of struggle, the birth of our sons. But as the slides progressed, the tone shifted. A receipt from the Drake Hotel dated 6 months ago. A jewelry store invoice for a $15,000 necklace I'd never received. Credit card statements showing dinners for 2 at romantic restaurants while I was visiting my mother in Florida. February 15th. I narrated calmly as a new slide appeared. The day everything changed. I was taking Lucas's suits to the cleaners when this fell out of his pocket. The Ritz-Carlton receipt filled the screen. Presidential suite, Valentine's Day, room service for 2, champagne, chocolate-covered strawberries, the works. Curious. I continued. Since Lucas told me he was stuck in budget meetings that night, even sent me apology flowers, though I later discovered Janet had ordered those too. The room was tomb silent except for the soft clink of ice in glasses and the scratch of the society photographer's pen. He'd given up on pictures and was furiously taking notes. At first, I blamed myself, I admitted, clicking to the next slide. A photo of me from last year, looking tired and worn at a charity gala. I'd let myself go, perhaps, focused too much on the boys, on running the household, on supporting Lucas's career. But then I remembered something my mother told me when I got married. "Margaret, never apologize for aging gracefully while your husband ages disgracefully." Nervous laughter rippled through the crowd. So I hired Kevin Donnelly. I gestured to where Kevin stood, still maintaining his position by the windows. The best private investigator in Chicago, and what he uncovered was illuminating. The next slide showed Lucas entering a jewelry store. The one after captured him dining with Janet at Alinea, feeding her from his fork. Then came the apartment building in Gold Coast, Lucas holding the door for a visibly pregnant Janet. The affair started exactly 1 year ago today, I explained. March 15th. Lucas had just promoted Janet from the typing pool to his personal secretary. Apparently, her qualifications extended beyond her 90 words per minute typing speed. Diane laughed out loud before catching herself. Others followed, the tension in the room shifting from shock to something almost like anticipation. But infidelity, while painful, wasn't the worst discovery. I clicked to a new slide. Bank statements. This is where it gets interesting. You see, Lucas hadn't just betrayed me personally. He'd betrayed everyone in this room who'd invested in Morrison Industries. Richard Blackstone leaned forward, his face darkening as he studied the projected documents. Starting last March, Lucas began moving money from the acquisition fund to personal accounts. Small amounts at first, 10,000 here, 15 there. Always just under the threshold that would trigger an audit alert. I clicked through several more slides, each showing fund transfers, creative accounting, shell companies. The Gold Coast apartment? Purchased with company funds, listed as a client. Entertainment facility. Janet's new car? A corporate lease for a key employee. The Miami trips? Business development? The jewelry? Client gifts? All paid for by Morrison Industries. This is slander. The shout came from the doorway. Lucas stood there, his face flushed with alcohol and rage. He must have been waiting in the bar, liquid courage building until Janet's dramatic exit. "Margaret, what the hell do you think you're doing?" The room turned as one to face him. Lucas Morrison, tech industry titan, philanthropist, serial adulterer, swayed slightly in his custom Tom Ford suit, his silver hair disheveled. "Ah, Lucas," I said pleasantly. "We were just getting to the good part. Please join us." "You're trying to destroy me," he snarled, stumbling forward. "Because I fell in love with someone else? Because I found someone who actually appreciates me?" I laughed, genuinely laughed. "Appreciates you? Lucas, she appreciates your credit cards, your expense account, the lifestyle you stole from our company to provide for her." "Our company?" His voice dripped with contempt. "I built Morrison Industries from nothing. With my family's money," I countered smoothly. "My father's business connections, my legal expertise in those early years, and let's not forget the $50 million trust fund I liquidated to save the company during the dot-com crash." "Ancient history," he spat. "Not according to the corporate charter," I replied, clicking to a new slide, which clearly states that in the event of financial malfeasance by the CEO, controlling interest reverts to the majority shareholder, which, as of this morning, is me. "What are you talking about? Richard?" I turned to the board chairman. "Would you like to explain?" Richard Blackstone stood, his expression grave. "The board held an emergency meeting this afternoon, Lucas. In light of the evidence Mrs. Morrison presented regarding misappropriation of funds, you've been suspended pending a full investigation." Lucas's face went from red to white. "You can't do that. I'm the founder." "You're also a thief," Oliver said coldly, moving to stand beside me. "And as of Monday morning, you'll be facing criminal charges." "This is a setup," Lucas spluttered, looking around wildly for support. "A conspiracy! Margaret's trying to steal my company." "Your company?" I clicked to the final slide, a legal document dated 1999. "This is our original incorporation agreement, Lucas. The one you signed when you were so eager for my father's money that you'd agree to anything. It clearly states that in the event of divorce due to infidelity, all shares revert to the injured party." "You planned this," he whispered, the reality finally sinking in. "No, Lucas," I corrected. "You planned this. Every hotel receipt, every secret apartment payment, every diverted fund. You built this house of cards. I'm simply documenting its collapse." Kevin stepped forward, pulling official-looking documents from his jacket. "Lucas Morrison, I'm serving you with divorce papers and a restraining order barring you from Morrison Industries properties pending the investigation." "You can't! This is my birthday party," Lucas protested weakly. "No," I said firmly. "This is my birthday party, and you weren't invited." 2 security guards, hired specifically for this moment, appeared at Lucas's elbows. "Mr. Morrison," one said professionally, "we'll escort you out." As they led him away, Lucas turned back, his face contorted with rage and disbelief. "You'll regret this, Margaret. You're nothing without me." I smiled, raising my champagne glass. "We'll see about that." The doors closed behind him and I turned back to my guests. "Now, who's ready for cake?" I ordered red velvet, Lucas's favorite, though I suppose we'll have to enjoy it without him. The tension broke completely then, replaced by excited chatter and even some applause. But I wasn't finished. Not by a long shot. "Oh, and one more thing," I announced as the lights came back up. "For those of you who serve on various boards with Lucas, you might want to check your phones. I've had my attorneys send over documentation of similar financial irregularities in 3 other organizations where Lucas holds positions of trust." The sound of phones buzzing filled the room as several prominent businessmen frantically checked their messages. "Happy birthday to me," I murmured, accepting a fresh glass of champagne from Antonio. The night was still young, and I had 25 years of grievances to address. Janet's dramatic entrance had been merely the appetizer. The main course was just beginning. The morning after my birthday party, I sat in my home office surrounded by bankers' boxes and file folders. The detritus of 25 years of marriage transformed into evidence. Rain streaked the windows of our Lakeshore Drive penthouse, the Chicago skyline gray and brooding beyond the glass. My laptop displayed a spreadsheet I'd been building for months. Every suspicious transaction, every unexplained absence, every lie carefully cataloged. Kevin arrived at precisely 9 a.m., as scheduled. With him was Bridget Coleman, the forensic accountant I'd hired 6 weeks ago. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and an even sharper mind, known for unraveling the financial schemes of white-collar criminals. "The offshore accounts were cleverly hidden," Bridget said, spreading documents across my desk. "Lucas used a series of shell companies in the Cayman Islands, but he made one crucial mistake. He used the same lawyer for all of them. A lawyer who, coincidentally, attended last night's party. Douglas Reinhardt?" I nodded. He looked rather pale when I mentioned forensic accounting. "He should," Kevin interjected. "He's facing disbarment. Turns out helping clients hide embezzled funds violates several ethical standards." I studied the web of transactions Bridget had mapped out. It was more extensive than even I had imagined. Lucas hadn't just been stealing from Morrison Industries. He'd been siphoning funds from 2 charitable foundations where he served as treasurer. "The pregnancy complicated things," Kevin continued, flipping through his own files. "Janet got greedy. She wanted more than just the apartment and the allowance. She wanted legitimacy, marriage, a claim on the Morrison fortune. That's when she made her first mistake," I said, pulling out a folder marked J. Caldwell, background. "She started pressuring Lucas, threatening to expose the affair if he didn't leave me." Kevin nodded. "The text messages between them got increasingly hostile. She gave him an ultimatum: divorce by your birthday, or she'd tell you everything herself. Which is exactly what I counted on." I smiled grimly. Janet thought she was being clever, planning her grand entrance. She never realized I'd been feeding her information through carefully placed leaks. Bridget looked up from her laptop. "The pattern goes back further than we thought. Lucas has been setting up unauthorized accounts for 5 years. Small diversions. At first, but they escalated when he met Janet." I moved to the window watching Lake Michigan churn below. 5 years. While I'd been planning fundraisers and supporting his career, Lucas had been systematically betraying everyone who trusted him. "There's more," Kevin said quietly. "Janet isn't the first." I turned back. "I know. The presentation last night covered 3 previous affairs." "No, I mean she isn't the first pregnancy." The words hit me like a physical blow. Kevin handed me a file marked confidential. Inside were medical records, payment receipts, and photographs of a woman I vaguely recognized. "Elodie Summers," Kevin explained. former marketing director at Morrison Industries, left abruptly 4 years ago with a generous severance package. I remember her, I said slowly. Lucas said she was relocated to the London office. She was relocated, all right, to a private clinic in Switzerland. The abortion was performed at 16 weeks. Lucas paid her $2 million for her silence. I sank into my chair, processing this new betrayal. 4 years ago, I'd been going through early menopause, grieving the end of my fertility. Lucas had held me while I cried about never having the daughter I'd always wanted, all while he was paying off his pregnant mistress. The money came from the employee pension fund, Bridget added. He replaced it 3 months later with dividends from a deal that closed early. No one ever noticed. I noticed, I said quietly. I asked about the pension fund discrepancy. Lucas said it was an accounting error, a timing issue with the fiscal quarter transition. You believed him, Kevin observed, not unkindly. I trusted him, I corrected. There's a difference. We spent the next 3 hours mapping out Lucas's financial crimes. The scope was staggering. He'd stolen nearly $30 million over 5 years, using increasingly complex schemes to hide his tracks. But greed had made him sloppy, and Janet's pregnancy had made him desperate. The board meeting is Monday, I said finally. Do we have enough to ensure his removal? More than enough, Bridget confirmed. The SEC will likely file charges by Wednesday. The Illinois Attorney General's office is already preparing a case. What about Janet? Kevin shifted uncomfortably. That's complicated. She's guilty of conspiracy, certainly, but she's also 7 months pregnant. Prosecutors will be reluctant to pursue charges until after the birth. I nodded, understanding the optics. The wronged wife sending her pregnant rival to prison wouldn't play well in the media. There's something else, Kevin said, producing another file. Janet's been in contact with a reporter from the Tribune. She's planning to sell her story. The other woman, My Life with Lucas Morrison. I laughed bitterly. Let her. By the time the story runs, Lucas will be facing federal charges. She'll be just another cautionary tale about getting involved with married men. My phone buzzed. James, my eldest, calling from New Haven. Mom, I saw the news. Are you okay? I'm fine, darling, I assured him. Better than fine, actually. The Yale Law Review wants to interview you, he said. About corporate governance and spousal rights in closely held companies. Apparently, your takedown of Dad is being hailed as a masterclass in strategic litigation. After ending the call, I turned to my team. What's our next move? The Morrison Foundation Board meets tomorrow, Bridget said. They'll need to know about the missing funds before the story breaks, publicly. And Janet? Kevin asked. I considered for a moment. Offer her a deal, a generous settlement for the child, who is, after all, my son's half-sibling, in exchange for her cooperation with the investigation. Make it clear that the alternative is facing charges as a co-conspirator. That's remarkably generous, Kevin observed. It's strategic, I corrected. Janet was a pawn in Lucas's game. Young, ambitious, and naive. He preyed on her just as he preyed on everyone else. The child shouldn't suffer for the sins of its parents. As they gathered their files to leave, Bridget paused at the door. Mrs. Morrison, I've investigated dozens of these cases. Usually the spouse is either completely oblivious or in complete denial. You're neither. When did you really know? I smiled sadly. A wife always knows, Bridget. The question is when she decides to stop pretending she doesn't. After they left, I sat alone in my office, surrounded by evidence of my husband's betrayal. 25 years reduced to spreadsheets and surveillance photos. But amid the wreckage, I felt something unexpected. Relief. The charade was over. The truth, however ugly, was finally in the open. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Janet. We need to talk. I stared at the message for a long moment before typing my reply. Lobby coffee shop, 1 hour, come alone. The investigation phase was ending. The confrontation phase was about to begin, and this time I would be the one controlling the narrative. The Four Seasons lobby coffee shop was nearly empty at 3 p.m. on a Sunday, exactly as I'd planned. I chose a table in the corner with clear sightlines to both entrances, my back against the wall, a habit from my prosecutor days that I'd never shaken. I ordered Earl Grey tea and waited, reviewing my strategy one final time. Janet arrived 15 minutes late, waddling slightly, her designer maternity dress wrinkled, and her usually perfect hair pulled into a messy bun. Without makeup, she looked even younger than her 28 years, a child playing dress-up in a woman's world. "Mrs. Morrison," she began, sliding into the chair across from me. "Margaret," I corrected. "We're past formalities, don't you think?" She nodded, fidgeting with her engagement ring, my former anniversary band. I let the silence stretch, a negotiation tactic I'd learned long ago. Let them fill the void. Let them reveal their position. "I didn't know," she finally blurted. "About the money, the embezzlement. I thought he was just rich." "But you knew he was married," I observed calmly. "He said you had an arrangement, that you stayed together for appearances but lived separate lives." Her hand went to her belly protectively. "He said you couldn't have more children, that you wouldn't mind if he had a child with his secretary," I finished. How progressive of me. Tears welled in her eyes. "I loved him. I know you won't believe that, but I did. I do." I studied her carefully. The girl was either an exceptional actress or genuinely naive. Perhaps both. "Janet, I asked you here to make you an offer. But first, I need complete honesty. Did Lucas ever discuss his financial dealings with you?" She shook her head. "Only that he was setting up our future. The apartment, the car. He said they were investments. That once the divorce was final, we'd have everything we needed. And the company restructuring plans, the ones where I would be pushed out?" Her face flushed. "That was my idea," she admitted. I thought if you weren't involved in the company anymore, you'd be more willing to let go. To move on." "How thoughtful," I said dryly. "And the forged letters to his attorney? The ones supposedly from me?" She paled. "How did you—" "I know everything, Janet. The question is what we do with that knowledge." I pulled out a folder from my briefcase. "This is a settlement agreement. $5 million in trust for your child, plus medical expenses and education. Costs through graduate school. In exchange, you cooperate fully with the investigation into Lucas's financial crimes." Her eyes widened. $5 million? "The child is innocent in this," I explained. "And like it or not, he or she will be my son's sibling. I won't punish a baby for its parents' mistakes. What's the catch?" "No catch, just conditions. You testify truthfully about everything you know. You sign a non-disclosure agreement regarding our family's private matters. And you agree to a paternity test once the baby is born." "Paternity test?" She looked insulted. "Lucas is definitely the father." "I'm sure he is. But my lawyers insist. Trust, as you might understand, is in short supply these days." She reached for the document, then hesitated. "What happens to Lucas?" "That depends on what the investigation uncovers. At minimum, he'll lose control of the company and face civil penalties. At worst, federal prison." "And me?" "You're young, Janet. You made terrible choices, but you're not a criminal. Take the deal. Start fresh. Raise your child away from this mess." She was quiet for a long moment, reading through the agreement. "Why are you being so nice to me?" I laughed softly. "Nice?" "No, dear. I'm being strategic. A messy court battle with a pregnant mistress helps no one. Bad for the company stock, bad for my sons, bad for my reputation. This way, Everyone gets what they need. Except Lucas. Lucas will get exactly what he deserves, I said firmly. No more, no less. She signed the papers with shaking hands. As she pushed them back across the table, she asked, "Did you ever love him? Really love him?" I considered the question. I loved who I thought he was, but that person may never have existed. After Janet left, I met with my core team at my attorney's office. Patricia Whitmore, senior partner at Whitmore, Carroll and Associates, had cleared her Sunday afternoon for this, War Council. With her were Kevin, Bridget, and surprisingly, Richard Blackstone from Morrison Industries Board. "The emergency board meeting is set for 9 a.m. tomorrow," Richard announced. "We have enough votes to remove Lucas, but it won't be unanimous. Harold Witherspoon and Joseph Klein are still loyal to him." "Witherspoon's loyalty can be bought," I said. "Show him the documentation on the pension fund. He's 2 years from retirement. Make it clear his own money was at risk." "And Klein?" Patricia asked. "Joseph's son works for the Morrison Foundation," I explained. "The same foundation Lucas stole from. A quiet word about potential criminal exposure should clarify his thinking." Patricia nodded approvingly. "You haven't lost your edge, Margaret. Now, let's discuss the media strategy." We spent the next 3 hours crafting press releases, legal filings, and contingency plans. By evening, we had a comprehensive strategy that would systematically dismantle Lucas's power base while protecting the company and its employees. "There's one more thing," I said as we wrapped up. "Lucas has a safe in his home office, combination 071582, our anniversary. I need someone to secure its contents before he thinks to empty it." Kevin raised an eyebrow. "You want us to break into your own home?" "It's still my home," I reminded him. "And I have a key. But Lucas might be there, and I'd prefer to avoid a confrontation until after tomorrow's board meeting." "I'll handle it," Kevin offered. "What am I looking for?" "Everything, but specifically a red leather journal. Lucas keeps handwritten notes of his special transactions. He thinks digital records can be traced too easily." Patricia leaned forward. "How long have you known about this journal?" I smiled. "Since our 10th anniversary. Lucas got drunk and bragged about his insurance policy against business partners who might betray him. I never forgot." "Why didn't you look for it sooner?" Bridget asked. "Because I needed him to feel safe. Overconfident. If he knew I was investigating, he might have destroyed evidence. Better to let him think I was the oblivious wife until all the pieces were in place." Richard shook his head admiringly. "Remind me never to cross you, Margaret." As the meeting concluded, Patricia pulled me aside. "Are you ready for tomorrow? It's going to be brutal." I thought about the 25 years I'd spent building a life with Lucas, only to discover it was all built on lies. I thought about Janet's swollen belly and the child who would carry the Morrison name. I thought about my sons, who would have to reconcile the father they loved with the criminal he'd become. "I've been ready for months," I told her. "Tomorrow, we end this chapter, and I finally get to write my own story." The sun was setting over Chicago as I left the office, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Somewhere in the city, Lucas was probably drinking himself into oblivion, unaware that his empire was crumbling. Tomorrow would bring lawyers, board meetings, and public scandal. But tonight, I would go home to my empty penthouse, pour myself a glass of wine, and savor the quiet satisfaction of a plan perfectly executed. The trap was set. All that remained was to spring it. Monday morning arrived with the kind of crisp Chicago spring weather that usually lifted my spirits. Today it felt like pathetic fallacy, the calm before the storm. I dressed carefully in my armor, a charcoal, Chanel suit, pearl earrings, and the diamond tennis bracelet I'd bought myself last Christmas when Lucas forgot our anniversary again. At 7 a.m., Kevin called. "I got the journal. And Margaret, you're going to want to see this before the board meeting." We met at my attorney's office, where Kevin spread the contents of Lucas's safe across the conference table. The red leather journal sat among stocks, certificates, property deeds, and photographs I didn't want to examine too closely. Page 47, Kevin said, sliding the journal toward me. Lucas's handwriting, once charming in its messiness, now looked like the scrawl of a guilty conscience. March 15th, first day with Jay. Finally someone who appreciates my vision. M. getting suspicious about late nights. Need better cover stories. April 2nd. Setup Cayman account number 4. Moved $2 from acquisition fund. Board too stupid to notice. May 18th. J pregnant. Could be useful. M can't have more kids. Perfect timing to force divorce. June 20th. M asking questions about pension fund. Need to be more careful. Maybe time to frame her for embezzlement if she gets too close. My hands trembled slightly as I read that last entry. He was planning to frame me? Turn to page 61, Kevin said grimly. September 3rd. Contacted Derek about creating backdated documents showing M's involvement in fund transfers. $50K to make it look authentic. Her signatures from charity work will be perfect. Derek is Derek Williamson, Kevin explained. A forger who works out of Bridgeport. I've already provided his information to the FBI. I closed the journal, feeling sick. It was one thing to know your husband was cheating and stealing. It was another to discover he'd been planning to send you to prison for his crimes. There's more, Kevin said, pulling out a manila envelope. These are the photographs from his safe. I waved my hand. I don't need to see pictures of his affairs. Not those kinds of pictures. These. He spread out surveillance photos. Of me. Having coffee with friends, shopping, meeting with my sons, attending board meetings. He was having me followed? I touched one photo, recognizing the date. My mother's birthday last year. Lucas had claimed he was in New York for business. Instead, he'd hired someone to watch me visit my dying mother. For over a year, Kevin confirmed. He was building a case that you were mentally unstable. Look at these notes on the back. I flipped one over. M talking to herself at cemetery. Signs of breakdown. Another. M crying in car after lunch with Diane. Depression. I was visiting my father's grave, I said quietly. And Diane had just told me about her breast cancer diagnosis. He was trying to gaslight you, Kevin said. Create a paper trail suggesting mental instability in case you ever challenged him. Patricia walked in just then, stopping short at my expression. What's wrong? I showed her the journal entries and photographs. Her face darkened as she read. This changes things, she said. This isn't just embezzlement anymore. This is conspiracy, attempted fraud, potentially even attempted false imprisonment if he'd succeeded in framing you. We need to inform the FBI before the board meeting, Kevin suggested. No, I said firmly. The board meeting goes ahead as planned. We remove him from power first, then let law enforcement take over. I want him to lose everything before he realizes how much trouble he's really in. At 8:45 a.m., I entered the Morrison Industries boardroom. The space held so many memories. Company celebrations, tense negotiations, holiday parties where Lucas charmed investors while I played the perfect corporate wife. Today, it would witness his downfall. Board members filtered in, some greeting me warmly, others avoiding eye contact. Lucas's allies were clearly nervous. At exactly 9 Dao, Lucas strode in, his trademark confidence intact despite the whispers that followed him. Shall we get started? Richard Blackstone called the meeting to order. We have several urgent matters to address. Lucas took his usual seat at the head of the table. I sat directly across from him, maintaining eye contact as Richard began. The board has called this emergency meeting to address serious allegations of financial misconduct. This is ridiculous, Lucas interrupted. My wife is having some kind of breakdown and you're all buying into her delusions. Mr. Morrison, Richard continued calmly, We have evidence of systematic embezzlement from company funds, including the transfer of $30 million to offshore accounts. Where's your proof? Lucas demanded. Bridget stood, connecting her laptop to the presentation system. I'm Bridget Coleman, forensic accountant. I've been investigating Morrison Industries' finances for the past 6 weeks. The screen filled. With damning evidence, bank statements, wire transfers, shell company documents. With each slide, Lucas's face grew paler. Furthermore, Bridget continued, we have testimony from multiple sources confirming Mr. Morrison's involvement in these transactions. What sources? Lucas snapped. My vindictive wife? Actually, Kevin said, standing. Your attorney, Douglas Reinhardt, has agreed to testify in exchange for immunity. He's provided detailed records of your offshore accounts. Lucas turned to Yao. Face me. Real fear finally showing in his eyes. Margaret, please. Think about what you're doing. Think about our sons. I am thinking about them, I replied evenly. They deserve to know their mother won't let anyone, not even their father, destroy what we've built. Richard cleared his throat. I moved to remove Lucas Morrison as CEO, effective immediately. Seconded, said Patricia Blackwell. All in favor? One by one, hands raised around the table. Even Joseph Klein, Lucas's longtime ally, voted for removal. After glancing at his phone, presumably checking his messages about his son's potential legal exposure. Motion carried, Richard announced. Lucas Morrison, you are hereby removed as CEO of Morrison Industries. You can't do this, Lucas shouted, standing so forcefully his chair tipped over. This is my company. Security is waiting outside, Richard said calmly. Please collect your personal items and leave the building. As security entered, Lucas grabbed my arm. You've destroyed everything we built together. I carefully removed his hand. No, Lucas, you destroyed it. I'm just cleaning up the mess. After security escorted him out, Richard turned to the board. I nominate Margaret Morrison as interim CEO. Seconded, came multiple voices. The vote was unanimous. One more matter, Richard said. We've been informed that the FBI will be arriving at 11 a.m. to interview Mr. Morrison regarding federal charges. Margaret, as the new CEO, you should be present. Actually, I said, standing, I have somewhere else to be. Bridget can handle the FBI interview. I walked to the window, looking down at the street where Lucas was being escorted to his car. By security, photographers already gathering. His public humiliation was just beginning. Where are you going? Patricia asked. To see my son, I replied. James is flying in from Yale. Both boys want to hear the truth from me before it hits the news. Outside, a reporter had cornered Lucas. Even from 20 floors up, I could see his agitation as he tried to push past the cameras. By evening, his face would be on every news channel in Chicago. Margaret? Richard's voice was gentle. Are you sure you're ready for this? The media attention will be brutal. I turned from the window, thinking of the journal entries plotting my destruction, the surveillance photos documenting my grief, the systematic attempt to erase my contributions to the company we'd built together. I've been ready for years, I said. I just didn't know it until now. As I left the boardroom, my phone buzzed with a text from Oliver. Mom, I'm with James at the apartment. The news is already breaking. Are you okay? I typed back. On my way. Order pizza. We have a lot to talk about. Walking through the building, I'd helped create, past employees who now looked at me with new respect. I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Freedom. The careful dance of appearances was over. The truth, messy and painful as it was finally in the open. But this victory felt hollow. 25 years couldn't be erased with a board vote. The man I'd loved, the father of my children, had been willing to send me to prison to protect his secrets. That betrayal cut deeper than any affair. As I reached the lobby, Kevin fell into step beside me. The FBI wants to interview you at 2 p.m. Tell them 4, I said. I need time with my sons first. They deserve to hear everything from me, not the evening news. Margaret, Kevin said, stopping me with a hand on my arm. You did the right thing. He would have destroyed you. I know, I replied, but knowing doesn't make it hurt any less. Outside, Chicago stretched before me, indifferent to personal tragedies and corporate dramas. Somewhere in this city, Lucas was probably calling his lawyer, trying to salvage what was left of his reputation. Janet was preparing for single motherhood, and I was walking toward a future I couldn't quite envision yet. But first, I had to face my sons and explain how their father had become a stranger and why their mother had orchestrated his downfall. The hardest conversation of my life awaited, but I wouldn't face it alone. Truth had a way of bringing people together, even as it tore others apart. The stage was set for the final act of Lucas Morrison's fall from grace. I just had to play my part a little longer. The apartment James and Oliver shared in Lincoln Park was a typical bachelor pad. Exposed brick walls, minimalist furniture, and a kitchen that saw more takeout containers than home cooking. But today it felt like a war room. Pizza boxes sat untouched on the coffee table while my sons studied the evidence I'd brought. Bank statements, journal entries, surveillance photos. He was going to frame you? James, my eldest, held the journal with shaking hands. His Yale law education hadn't prepared him for this level of family betrayal. For embezzlement, I confirmed. He'd already contacted a forger. Oliver paced by the windows, his business instincts warring with filial loyalty. The shareholders are going to panic. Our stock will tank. It already has, I said. Down 12% in early trading, but it'll recover once we announce the restructuring plan. What restructuring plan? James asked. The one I've been developing for 3 months. I pulled out my laptop. New leadership, reformed governance, and a forensic audit of all divisions. We'll take the hit now but emerge stronger. My phone buzzed. The caller ID showed Lucas Morrison. Don't answer, Oliver said quickly. I have to. This is still a negotiation. I stepped into the hallway. For privacy. Margaret, Lucas's voice was rough, desperate. We need to talk. We are talking. In person. Please. Not with lawyers, not with investigators. Just us. Where are you? The Drake. Room 1420. Christ. Margaret, they've frozen all my accounts. I can't even pay for room service. I almost laughed at the irony. The Drake Hotel, where he'd conducted several of his affairs. Now it was his prison. I'll be there in an hour, I said. Mom, no, James protested when I returned. Let the FBI handle him. The FBI wants evidence, I said. Lucas is desperate enough to provide it, if I handle this right. The Drake Hotel lobby was swarming with reporters when I arrived. Someone had leaked Lucas's location. I slipped in. Through the service entrance, a route I'd learned years ago when attending charity galas here. Room 1420 was a standard suite, not the penthouse Lucas usually preferred. He answered the door unshaven, still wearing yesterday's suit. The room reeked of scotch and desperation. You look terrible, I observed. You look... He gestured helplessly. The same. Beautiful. How can you be so calm? Practice, I said, sitting in the armchair farthest from him. You wanted to talk. Talk. He poured himself another scotch. I never meant for it to go this far. The affairs? The embezzlement? The plan to frame me for your crimes? He flinched. You read the journal. Every word. Tell me, Lucas. When exactly? Did you decide I was expendable? He collapsed onto the sofa. It wasn't like that. It started small. A few thousand here and there. Just to cover expenses. For your mistresses. 4 opportunities, he exploded. Do you know how hard it is to maintain our lifestyle? The houses, the cars, the school fees? I paid those school fees, I reminded him, with my inheritance, which I invested, which I grew into, which you stole from. Don't rewrite history, Lucas. Not with me. He drained his glass. What do you want? Full disclosure. Every offshore account, every shell company, every fraudulent transaction. In writing. And in exchange, I'll recommend minimum security prison instead of maximum. He laughed bitterly. Prison. Jesus Christ, Margaret. You stole $30 million. Lucas! You were planning to frame me for your crimes. What did you expect? A slap on the wrist? I expected loyalty, he shouted. 25 years, Margaret. I gave you everything. You gave me lies, I said quietly. Betrayal. Humiliation. You gave me a private investigator documenting my grief so you could paint me as unstable. You gave me a husband who was planning to destroy me to save himself. He deflated like a punctured balloon. When did you know? About the affairs? Years ago. About the money? 6 months? About your plan to frame me? Last night. Why didn't you just divorce me? Because you would have hidden assets, destroyed evidence, and painted me as the bitter ex-wife. I needed you to feel safe, overconfident. So the birthday party was a trap. Yes. He stood abruptly, pacing. Janet's pregnant with my child. I know, I've already set up a trust fund for the baby. He stopped. You what? $5 million. The child is innocent, Lucas. Unlike its father. Why would you do that? Because I'm not you, I said simply. I don't punish children for their parents' sins. My phone buzzed. A text from Kevin. FBI is at the office. They want to know your location. The FBI wants to talk to you, I told Lucas. I need a lawyer. Douglas already flipped. He's providing evidence in exchange for immunity. That bastard. He's protecting himself, just like you've always done. Lucas slumped back onto the sofa. I loved you once, you know. No, you didn't. You loved what I represented. The connections, the money, the respectability. When those became inconvenient, you tried to destroy me. What happens now? Now you have a choice. Cooperate fully and maybe serve 5 to 7 years. Fight it and face 20 to 30. Some choice. I stood to leave. It's more than you gave me. Margaret, wait. He grabbed my arm. The boys. What did you tell them? The truth. Do they hate me? I looked at this man I'd once loved, now reduced to a pathetic shadow. They're disappointed, angry, confused. But they don't hate you, Lucas. They pity you. His hand dropped. That's worse. Yes, I agreed. It is. I walked to the door, then paused. One more thing. Janet has agreed to cooperate with the investigation. She's providing emails, text messages, recordings of your conversations. Recordings? Apparently she started taping you after you missed 3 child support payments to your previous mistress, the one in London. His face went white. You know about Elodie? I know about all of them, Lucas. Every affair, every payoff, every lie. The only question is whether the FBI learns it from me or from you. You've won, he said bitterly. Is that what you want to hear? This isn't about winning. It's about justice and maybe redemption. For who? For everyone you hurt, including yourself. I left him there, alone with his scotch and his regrets. In the hallway, I texted Kevin. Room 1420. He's ready to talk. The elevator ride down felt like shedding years of accumulated weight. Each floor brought me closer to a future I was only beginning to imagine. In the lobby, I ran into Janet. She was standing by the windows, one hand on her belly, watching the media circus outside. Janet? I acknowledged. She turned, startled. Margaret, I'm meeting with the FBI in an hour. I know. Are you ready? I'm scared, she admitted. Of what? Of everything. The media, the investigation, raising this baby alone. I studied her. Young, pregnant, terrified. So different from my memories of her confident entrance at my birthday party. "Can I give you some advice?" I asked. She nodded. "Tell the truth. All of it. It's the only way to move forward. Even if it hurts people?" "The truth hurts less than the lies, Janet. Trust me on that." She touched her belly again. "Will my baby hate me for this?" "That depends on what you do next. Children can forgive mistakes. They can't forgive continued deception. Is that why you're doing this? For your sons?" "I'm doing this for everyone Lucas hurt, including myself." "Including me?" I smiled slightly. "Even you, Janet, especially your child." Outside, a reporter spotted us through the window and pointed. Cameras swung in our direction. "Go out the service entrance," I advised. "Avoid the cameras until you're ready to face them." "What about you?" I straightened my jacket, touched my pearls. "I've been facing them for 25 years. What's one more day?" I walked out the front entrance into a barrage of questions and flashing cameras. But for the first time in decades, I didn't have to smile and deflect. I could speak the truth. "Mrs. Morrison, is it true your husband embezzled $30 million? "The FBI is investigating," I replied calmly. "I have full confidence in their work." "What about his affair with his secretary?" "That's a private matter between my husband and his conscience." "Are you seeking a divorce?" I smiled. "My attorney will be making a statement this afternoon." As my car pulled away from the hotel, I saw Lucas watching from his window 14 floors up. Even from this distance, I could see the defeat in his posture. The initial confrontation was over. The real battle was just beginning. But for the first time in years, I was fighting on my own terms, with truth as my weapon and justice as my goal. My phone rang. "Oliver." "Mom?" "The FBI just left. They want all our financial records for the past 5 years." "Give them everything," I said. "We have nothing to hide anymore." "Are you okay?" I watched Chicago blur past my window. This city where I'd built a life, raised my children, and finally found my voice again. "I'm better than okay," I told my son. "I'm free." "The FBI?" Field office buzzed with the controlled chaos of a major financial crimes investigation. Agent Sarah Donovan, a no-nonsense woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and graying temples, led me to an interview room where boxes of evidence lined the walls. "Mrs. Morrison, thank you for coming," she said, gesturing to a chair. "Your cooperation has been invaluable. Please, call me Margaret, and I'm happy to help." She opened a file. "Let's start with the Caribbean accounts. We've traced 5 separate shell companies, but our forensic accountants believe there are more." I pulled out my laptop. "There are 7. Lucas was always fond of prime numbers, said they were harder to track." I opened a spreadsheet I'd been building. "Here's the pattern I discovered." Agent Donovan leaned forward. "How did you find this?" "Lucas used our anniversary dates as part of his passwords. July 15th, 1999. He'd reverse them, combine them with our son's birth dates. Sentimental and stupid. These transactions," she traced, a finger down the columns. "They go back 8 years. You've known that long?" "No. I suspected affairs, but not theft. Not until I hired Kevin Donnelly." "The private investigator who was at your birthday party?" "The same, but there's something else." I pulled out Lucas's journal. Page 83. She read aloud. "October 10th, met with Joe about the Detroit project. Agreed to funnel payments through the renovation budget. Margaret too busy with her charity work to notice." "Joe is Joseph Weinberg," I explained. "City councilman. The Detroit project was supposed to be low-income housing." "Are you saying your husband was involved in municipal corruption?" "I'm saying the rabbit hole goes deeper than anyone imagined. Lucas wasn't just stealing from our company. He was part of a network. Her eyes sharpened. What kind of network? Politicians, developers, union leaders. They'd inflate project costs, skim the excess, and launder it through charitable foundations. Including your foundations? 3 of them. The Morrison Family Trust, the Lakeside Youth Initiative, and, I swallowed hard, the Margaret Morrison Women's Shelter. He used your name? He used everything. Nothing was sacred. She made notes rapidly. We'll need documentation. It's all here. I pushed a flash drive across the table. Bank records, emails, recorded conversations. Lucas kept meticulous records. He thought they gave him power over his co-conspirators. Recorded conversations? He wore a wire to meetings. Insurance, he called it. I smiled grimly. He never imagined they'd be used against him. The door opened and another agent entered, whispering to Donovan. Her expression darkened. Margaret, when was the last time you spoke to Douglas Reinhardt? Lucas's attorney? Not since the birthday party. Why? He's missing. His office was cleaned out this morning. His secretary says he booked a flight to São Paulo. My stomach dropped. He's running. With what? I thought quickly. Client files. Lucas kept duplicates of everything at Douglas's office. If Douglas has those, he could blackmail half of Chicago's elite, or sell the information to the highest bidder. Agent Donovan stood abruptly. We need those files. Any idea where else he might have copies? Lucas had a storage unit, north side near Wrigley Field. He thought I didn't know about it. Address? I wrote it down. Unit 237. The key is hidden in his office at home, taped under the bottom drawer of his desk. She dispatched agents immediately, then turned back to me. There's something else. Janet Caldwell's testimony this morning revealed additional accounts we hadn't found. In her name? In her unborn child's name. Trust funds established with embezzled money. I felt sick. He was securing his future through his baby. 5 accounts, totaling $12 million. All opened in the last 3 months. Since I hired Kevin, he knew I was investigating. Margaret, Agent Donovan leaned forward. We believe Lucas was planning to flee. The trust funds, the liquidated assets, he was building an escape route. With Janet? Without her. According to her testimony, he'd been distancing himself since she told him about the pregnancy. She was becoming a liability. The pattern was familiar. Lucas discarded people when they became inconvenient. I'd almost joined that list. My phone buzzed. Oliver. Mom, turn on Channel 7. Now. I looked at Agent Donovan. May I? She nodded, turning on the wall-mounted television. Lucas's face filled the screen, standing outside the Drake Hotel. Reporters surrounded him as he spoke. Victim of a vindictive wife who couldn't accept that our marriage was over. Margaret has orchestrated this witch hunt out of jealousy and spite. The allegations are fabricated, the evidence manufactured. He's trying to control the narrative, I said. Let him talk. Agent Donovan smiled coldly. Every lie he tells on camera is another charge we can file. On screen, Lucas continued. I've been a faithful husband and honest businessman for 25 years. These accusations are an attempt to destroy my reputation and steal my company. A reporter shouted, What about your pregnant mistress? Lucas faltered. That's a personal matter. And the embezzlement charges? Completely false. My wife has access to all our accounts. If anyone manipulated funds, it was, he's going. To blame me? I realized. Just like he planned. Agent Donovan picked up her phone. We need to move faster. She made a quick call, then turned back. We're executing search warrants on all Morrison properties within the hour. Are you willing to make a public statement? Yes. Good. Because Lucas just made a crucial mistake. He claimed you had access to all accounts. We know that's false. The offshore accounts were opened with forged signatures. You can prove that? Your real signature versus the forgeries? Night and day. Douglas Reinhardt might have fled, but he left behind a very sloppy paper trail. Another agent burst in. We found the storage unit. It's a gold mine. Financial records, recorded conversations, even photographs. Photographs, I asked. Of meetings. Lucas with city officials, mob-connected union bosses, even a federal judge. Judge Harriman? I guessed, remembering a name from Lucas's journal. How did you know? Lucas mentioned him. They golfed together. Or did. Agent Donovan's phone rang. She listened, then smiled. They caught Douglas at O'Hare. He never made his flight. Relief flooded through me. What happens now? Now we build an airtight case. Lucas just went on record denying everything. When we present evidence proving he lied, it adds obstruction of justice to his charges. He's desperate, I said. Desperate people make mistakes. Speaking of desperate, she pulled out another file. We found something interesting in Janet's apartment. A life insurance policy on you, taken out 6 weeks ago. My blood chilled. What? $2 million. Beneficiary, Lucas Morrison. Janet claims she didn't know about it, but her signature is on the application. He was planning to. We don't know that, but it raises questions. I thought about the surveillance photos, the documentation of my mental instability, the forged signatures. Had Lucas been planning something darker than divorce? There's a safe deposit box, I said suddenly. Bank of America, downtown branch. Box 1847. Lucas. Visited it monthly, but never told me what was inside. We'll get a warrant. She studied me. How are you holding up? I'm angry, horrified, but not surprised. Is that wrong? It's survival. You knew who he was before you consciously admitted it. Your subconscious was protecting you. A commotion outside drew our attention. Through the window, I could see Lucas being escorted into the building by federal agents. They arrested him? I asked. After his press conference, he violated the terms of his release by discussing the case publicly. Can I watch the interrogation? You shouldn't, but... She gestured to another room. There's an observation window. I stood behind one-way glass as they brought Lucas in. His expensive suit was rumpled, his silver hair disheveled. The man who'd commanded boardrooms and charmed investors looked small, diminished. Mr. Morrison, Agent Donovan began, you've been advised of your rights? I want my lawyer. Mr. Reinhardt is currently in custody. You'll need new representation. Lucas's face crumpled. The last piece of his support system had fallen. I want to make a deal, he said suddenly. What kind of deal? I have information about people more powerful than me, people who make my crimes look like parking tickets. Agent Donovan glanced at the mirror, knowing I was watching. We're listening. Full immunity, Lucas demanded. For everything. You're not in a position to make demands, Mr. Morrison. Then, I want to talk to Margaret. Your wife? She'll understand. She knows I'm not the real villain here. I turned away from the window, sickened. Even now, Lucas was trying to manipulate me, to cast himself as the victim. Agent Donovan joined me moments later. He's asking for you. I know. You don't have to see him. I thought about 25 years of marriage, 2 sons, countless lies. Yes, I said finally. I do. One last time. Because this wasn't just about justice anymore. It was about closure. And I wouldn't get that until I faced Lucas. Morrison, not as his wife, but as the woman who'd brought him down. Let's end this, I said. Agent Donovan nodded. Let's end this. The interrogation room felt smaller with Lucas and me facing each other across the metal table. His desperate eyes searched my face for some sign of the woman who'd loved him for 25 years. He wouldn't find her. Margaret, he began, reaching for my hand. I pulled back. Mr. Morrison, the formality stung him visibly. I need your help. To do what? Lie for you? Cover up your crimes? To understand. This wasn't just about money or affairs. I was trapped. By whom? Joseph Weinberg, the Torino family, people who don't accept no for an answer. I laughed coldly. The Chicago mob made you embezzle from our company? They have their hooks in every major construction project in the city. When I refused to play ball initially, they threatened you, the boys. So instead of going to the FBI, you decided to steal millions and have multiple affairs? The affairs were separate. Were they? Because according to Janet's testimony this morning, you met her through Weinberg's nephew. The same nephew who runs the union that handles our construction contracts. Lucas's face paled. How did you— I've been investigating more than just your infidelity, Lucas. Did you really think you were the only one capable of connecting dots? Agent Donovan entered with a file. Mr. Morrison, we've been reviewing the contents of your storage unit. Care to explain these photographs? She spread them across the table. Lucas shaking hands with known mob associates, sharing drinks with corrupt politicians, exchanging envelopes in parking garages. Those meetings were legitimate business, he protested. Like this one? I picked up a photo of Lucas with Michael Torino, Chicago's most notorious crime boss. Taken 3 days before our company mysteriously won the Navy Pier renovation contract? Margaret, you don't understand? I understand perfectly. You didn't just betray me, Lucas. You betrayed every principle we built our company on. Every employee who trusted us. Every investor who believed in our integrity. Agent Donovan cleared her throat. Mr. Morrison, we've also decoded several of your recorded conversations. Would you like to hear what Michael Torino said about your wife? Lucas shook his head, but Donovan pressed play on her phone. That wife of yours, Morrison? Real class act. Shame if something happened to her at one of those charity galas. Maybe she takes a fall, needs a long recovery, gives you time to restructure things. Lucas's voice responded, I can handle Margaret. She's not a problem. Better be sure. Because if she becomes one— The recording ended. The threat hung in the air like poison. You knew they were threatening me, I said quietly. And you said I wasn't a problem. I was protecting you. By setting me up to take the fall for your embezzlement? That was never. I wouldn't have let it go that far. Like you didn't let it go too far with your previous mistress? The one who needed an abortion in Switzerland? How do you know about Elodie? I smiled coldly. Lucas, I know about all of them. Elodie, Claire, Melissa, the flight attendant from the Tokyo trip, the bartender from the Vegas convention. Should I continue? He slumped in his chair. When did I lose you, Margaret? The moment you decided I was expendable. Now tell Agent Donovan about the Detroit project. All of it. I want immunity first. Donovan shook her head. The U.S. Attorney is offering 10-15 years if you cooperate fully. Otherwise, you're looking at 25-30. For what? Moving some money around? For racketeering, I said quietly. The RICO charges alone could put you away for life. His head snapped up. RICO? That's for organized crime. Which is exactly what you've been involved in, Donovan confirmed. Your network includes 3 city council members, 2 judges, and multiple union officials, all connected to the Torino family. You can't prove— Actually, we can. I pulled out my phone and played a recording. Lucas's voice filled the room. The rezoning vote is tomorrow. Make sure Councilman Peters understands his daughter's scholarship depends on his cooperation. Another voice responded, And if he doesn't play ball? Then little Ashley might find her acceptance to Northwestern mysteriously revoked. Lucas stared at me in shock. How did you get that? Your car, darling. Remember when you had it detailed last month? I had a listening device installed. Legal, by the way. The car's in my name. You've been recording me? For months. After? I discovered you were recording your criminal associates. I thought turnabout was fair play. Donovan leaned forward. Mr. Morrison, your wife has provided us with enough evidence to dismantle the largest corruption ring in Chicago's history. The question is, do you want to go down as the mastermind or as someone who got in over his head? I'm not a criminal. Mastermind, he said weakly. No, I agreed. You're worse. You're a man who had everything: family, success, respect, and threw it away for greed and ego. Margaret, please. Do you know what the truly pathetic part is, Lucas? If you'd just asked for a divorce, I would have given you one. We could have split everything amicably. Instead, you chose to destroy everything we built. I never meant to hurt you. No, you meant to frame me for your crimes. Much cleaner that way. Agent Donovan stood. Mr. Morrison, you have 24 hours to decide whether you're cooperating fully. After that, the offer expires. What about Margaret? He asked desperately. Is she getting immunity? Donovan smiled. Your wife isn't facing charges, Mr. Morrison. She's our star witness. After leaving the interrogation room, I stood in the hallway, my hands shaking slightly. Donovan noticed. You did well in there, she said. I've been preparing for that conversation for months, I admitted. But actually having it was harder than you expected? No, easier. Does that make me cold? It makes you a survivor. My phone rang. Oliver, Mom, the board wants to hold a press conference. They want you to speak as the new CEO. Schedule it for tomorrow morning. Are you sure? The media is going crazy. Let them. By tomorrow, they'll have a real story to report. I hung up and turned to Donovan. What happens next? We execute search warrants on every person in Lucas's network. By tomorrow night, half of Chicago's elite will be in custody. And Lucas? That depends on whether he takes the deal. He will, I said confidently. Lucas always takes the easy way out. As I left the FBI building, I thought about the company I now controlled, the sons who needed their mother, and the future I was free to build. Lucas had tried to cage me with lies and manipulation. Instead, he'd given me the keys to my own liberation. Tomorrow, I would face the media as Margaret Morrison, CEO and survivor. Tonight, I would go home to my sons and begin the long process of healing. The professional betrayal was complete. What remained was the personal reckoning. The press conference was scheduled for 9 a.m. at Morrison Industries headquarters. By 7:30, the lobby was packed with reporters, camera crews, and employees who'd arrived early to witness history. I stood in my office, adjusting my Navy Armani suit when Kevin Donnelly knocked on the door. Ready for this? He asked. As ready as anyone can be for public character assassination. That's not what this is. You're telling your story. Our story, I corrected. None of this would have happened without you, he shrugged modestly. I just found the evidence. You had the courage to use it. There was another knock. Bridget Coleman entered with a stack of files. The final forensic report. You'll want these numbers for the press conference. I scanned the summary page. 42 million? I thought it was 30. That was just the embezzlement. This includes the kickbacks, the inflated contracts, the money laundering. My God. Margaret. Richard Blackstone appeared in the doorway. The board. Members are assembling. We need to present a united front. As we walked to the conference room, I was surprised to see Janet Caldwell sitting in the corner, visibly pregnant and clearly nervous. Janet? What are you doing here? She stood awkwardly. I asked to come, to support you, to apologize publicly, if needed. That's not necessary. Yes, it is. She took a deep breath. I was part of this. I knew he was married. I knew he was stealing. I convinced myself it was love, but I was just ambitious and stupid. We all make mistakes, Janet. Not like this. You could have destroyed me yesterday. Instead, you offered my child a trust fund. Why? Because children. shouldn't pay for their parents' sins. Tears welled in her eyes. I want to testify, not just to the FBI, but publicly. People should know the truth about Lucas. Richard cleared his throat. Actually, that might be helpful. The scorned mistress turning whistleblower? The media will eat it up. It's not about media spin, Janet protested. It's about doing what's right. I studied her carefully. The arrogant, young woman who'd crashed my birthday party was gone, replaced by someone humbled by consequences. If you're serious, I said, you can speak after me. But Janet, once you do this, there's no going back. I know. I'm ready. The boardroom filled quickly. 12 directors, each wearing expressions ranging from support to concern. Harold Witherspoon, who'd initially defended Lucas, approached me first. Margaret, I owe you an apology. I should have listened to your concerns months ago. You couldn't have known, Harold. But I should have suspected. The signs were there. One by one, board members offered similar sentiments. Even Joseph Klein, Lucas's golfing buddy, admitted he'd been willfully blind to the warning signs. We're preparing a vote of confidence in your leadership, Richard announced. Unanimous support for you as permanent CEO. Thank you, but first we need to address the media. As we filed toward the conference room, my phone buzzed. A text from James. Watching live from New Haven. Oliver and I are proud of you. Dad called, wanted us to convince you to stop. We told him to fuck off. Love, your sons. I smiled, drawing strength from their support. The conference room was standing room only. Cameras lined the back wall. Reporters filled every seat. I recognized faces from the Tribune, Sun-Times, Wall Street Journal, Bloomberg. This would be national news within hours. Richard spoke first, introducing me as the new CEO and outlining the board's support. Then it was my turn. I stepped to the podium, looking out at the sea of expectant faces. In the front row sat Agent Donovan, a subtle reminder that this was more than corporate drama. It was a criminal investigation. Good morning. I'm here today not just as the CEO of Morrison Industries, but as a woman who discovered her husband of 25 years was living a double life. The room fell silent. Lucas Morrison built this company on a foundation of lies, theft, and corruption. For years, he embezzled funds, accepted kickbacks, and conspired with organized crime figures to defraud investors, partners, and employees. Cameras clicked furiously as I laid out the evidence. Offshore accounts, shell companies, inflated contracts. I named names, cited figures, described the network of corruption Lucas had cultivated. But the professional betrayal, devastating as it was, paled in comparison to the personal one. My husband didn't just steal money, he stole trust. He planned to frame me for his crimes, documented false evidence of my mental instability, and took out life insurance policies without my knowledge. Gasps rippled through the room. I stand here today not as a victim, but as a survivor. And I'm not alone. I gestured to Janet, who approached the podium shakily. My name is Janet Caldwell, she began, voice trembling. I was Lucas Morrison's secretary and mistress. I'm 7 months pregnant with his child. The room erupted. Reporters shouted questions, cameras flashed. I placed a supportive hand on Janet's shoulder as she continued. I believed Lucas when he said his marriage was over. I believed him when he promised we'd build a life together. I was wrong. He used me, just as he used everyone in his orbit. She turned to face me directly. Mrs. Morrison, Margaret, I'm deeply sorry for my role in this. You've shown me more grace and dignity than I deserve. We were both deceived, I said publicly. The difference is, I had 25 years to learn to see through his lies. You had barely one. After Janet stepped away, I returned to the microphone. Morrison, Industries will survive this scandal. We're implementing new oversight measures, conducting a full forensic audit, and cooperating completely with federal investigators. To our employees, investors, and partners, You have my word that this company will emerge stronger and more transparent than ever. What about Mr. Morrison? A reporter called out. Lucas Morrison is currently in federal custody, facing charges of embezzlement, racketeering, and conspiracy. The justice system will determine his fate. Do you still love him? Another shouted. The question hung in the air. I considered it carefully. I loved the man I thought he was. That man never existed. The real Lucas Morrison? I pity him. He had everything: family, success, respect, and threw it away for greed. As the press conference ended, my phone lit up with messages of support. Former colleagues, childhood friends, even Lucas's sister reached out to express solidarity. But the most meaningful message came from an unexpected source. Michael Torino Jr., son of the mob boss Lucas had been involved with. Mrs. Morrison, you have my respect. My father is furious, but I'm glad someone finally stood up to him. Good luck. Even in Chicago's darkest corners, allies were emerging. The truth had a way of attracting support from surprising places. The next morning's headlines screamed across: Chicago and beyond, Morrison empire built on lies. CEO's wife exposes corruption network. Pregnant mistress turns whistleblower. I sat in my office, fielding calls from investors, while Patricia Whitmore managed the legal fallout. Every hour brought new revelations as more people came forward. Margaret, Patricia said, entering with fresh documents. 3 more former employees want to testify. Apparently, Lucas sexually harassed multiple women but paid them off. Jesus. I rubbed my temples. How deep does this go? Deeper. The FBI just found a second set of books in Douglas Reinhardt's office. Lucas wasn't just stealing from the company, he was skimming from the charity funds too. My phone rang. Agent Donovan. Margaret, we need you to identify some documents. Can you come to the field office? An hour later, I sat in a conference room surrounded by evidence boxes. Donovan spread papers across the table. These are from Lucas's safe deposit box. We need help understanding the code names. I studied the documents. Project Nightingale was the woman's shelter renovation. Project Cardinal was the children's hospital wing. Each charitable project had a code name and a second budget showing systematic theft. He stole from sick children, I said numbly, and homeless veterans, domestic violence victims, cancer patients. Donovan trailed off. Every charity you both supported. How much? Over $6 million. Diverted through a Cayman Islands account, then filtered back as anonymous donations for tax purposes. I felt physically ill. He accepted awards for that. Generosity. We went to galas, made speeches, and he used the charitable work to launder money from his mob connections, Donovan added. The Torino family made donations, got tax breaks, and received clean money in return. What about the life insurance policies? We found 3 more. Different insurance companies taken out over the past year. Total value, $8 million. He was planning to kill me. We can't prove intent, Donovan said carefully. But the timing is suspicious. Each policy was taken out after you started asking questions about finances. I thought about all the times Lucas had suggested romantic getaways in the past year. The sailing trip he'd wanted to take, just the 2 of us. The ski vacation in Aspen, the hiking expedition in Arizona. The accidents he could have arranged, I murmured. We're investigating each trip proposal, Donovan confirmed. Especially since we found searches on his laptop for accidental death, maritime law, and wilderness accidents. My phone buzzed. Oliver. Mom, Channel 7 has breaking news. Former Mayor Davidson just got arrested. Something about Dad's construction projects? I turned to Donovan. The dominoes are falling? Faster than we expected. Davidson, 3 city councilmen, and 2 judges. All arrested this morning. On what charges? Bribery, conspiracy, racketeering. Your husband's records detailed every payoff, every rigged bid, every fixed court case. What about Joseph Weinberg? In custody as of an hour ago. He's already trying to cut a deal. I leaned back in my chair, overwhelmed by the scope of Lucas's criminality. How did he keep all this straight in his head? He didn't, Donovan said, pulling out a leather journal. He kept detailed notes, names, dates, amounts, even blackmail material on his co-conspirators. That's how he controlled them. Until they controlled him. According to this, the Torino family was pressuring him for bigger payoffs. That's why the embezzlement escalated. My phone rang again. James this time. Mom, I just got a call from the Yale Law Review. They want to interview you about corporate whistleblowing and spousal rights. This case is already being taught in classrooms. After hanging up, I looked at Donovan. When does Lucas get sentenced? First, he has to be convicted. Trial's set for September. He's facing 147 criminal charges. Will he testify against his co-conspirators? His lawyer's negotiating. But honestly, most of them are turning on each other. Your evidence started an avalanche. That evening, I sat alone in my office, watching the sunset over Lake Michigan. The company stock had rebounded after initially plummeting. Investors were responding positively to the transparency measures I'd implemented. The media was portraying me as a hero rather than a victim. But I didn't feel heroic. I felt tired. A knock interrupted my thoughts. Janet Caldwell stood in the doorway. I'm sorry to bother you, she said. I wanted you to know that Lucas tried to call me from jail. He wanted me to lie, say you forced me to testify against him. And? I hung up on him. She placed a hand on her belly. I don't want my daughter growing up thinking that kind of behavior is acceptable. It's a girl? Found out this morning. She smiled weakly. I'm thinking of naming her Grace, because that's what you showed me when you had every reason to destroy me. After she left, I turned back to the window. Tomorrow would bring more revelations, more arrests, more evidence of Lucas's betrayal. But tonight, I allowed myself a moment of quiet satisfaction. I had exposed the truth. The rest was up to the justice system. The federal courthouse bustled with activity as Lucas Morrison's preliminary hearing approached. I walked through security flanked by Patricia Whitmore and Agent Donovan, ignoring the flash of cameras and shouted questions from reporters lining the steps. Mrs. Morrison, will you testify against your husband? How does it feel to bring down Chicago's biggest corruption ring? Inside, the hallway was packed with lawyers, investigators, and defendants. In the span of 2 weeks, 37 people had been indicted based on evidence I'd provided. The Morrison scandal had become the largest RICO case in Illinois history. Margaret. Assistant U.S. Attorney David Chen approached us. We need to discuss your testimony. I thought I wasn't testifying today? You're not. But Lucas's new attorney is making noise about spousal privilege? Patricia scoffed. Spousal privilege doesn't cover criminal conspiracy. Besides, most of the evidence came from Margaret's independent investigation. Exactly our position. But they're going to argue she illegally accessed his private documents. Everything was in joint accounts or company property I had legal access to, I countered. The storage unit was rented with our joint credit card. The safe was in our home. Even his car is technically mine. Good. That's what we'll argue. Courtroom 4 was standing room only. I took a seat in the gallery, noting the presence of several former business associates now wearing federal monitoring anklets. Lucas was brought in wearing an orange jumpsuit, his silver hair now showing dark roots, his face gaunt from 2 weeks. In federal custody. Our eyes met briefly. He looked away first. Judge Martha Williams, known for her no-nonsense approach to white-collar crime, called the hearing to order. We're here to address multiple motions from the defense, including a request for bail modification and a motion to suppress evidence. Lucas's attorney, a slick operator named Gerald Foster, stood. Your Honor, my client has been subjected to a vindictive campaign by his estranged wife. The evidence was obtained through marital deception and— Counselor, Judge Williams interrupted. Are you arguing that Mrs. Morrison didn't have legal access to joint financial records? I'm arguing she accessed them under false pretenses, Your Honor. Mr. Foster, I've reviewed the evidence list. Bank accounts, company documents, property records, all jointly owned or accessible to Mrs. Morrison in her role as CFO. Motion to suppress is denied. But, Your Honor, furthermore, the judge continued, given the evidence of Mr. Morrison's attempts to frame his wife for his crimes, including forged documents and false surveillance, I find her investigation not only legal, but prudently self-protective. The prosecutor stood. Your Honor, regarding bail, we have evidence Mr. Morrison was planning to flee the country. Tickets to São Paulo were found in his possession, along with false passports. False passports? The judge's eyebrows rose. 3 different identities, Your Honor, plus evidence of offshore accounts totaling $58 million. The number stunned me. Even I hadn't known the full extent. Bail is revoked, Judge Williams declared. The defendant will remain in custody pending trial. Your Honor, Foster protested. Mr. Foster, your client is charged with 147 federal crimes, including conspiracy to commit murder. The courtroom erupted. I gripped Patricia's hand. Based on evidence of life insurance policies taken out on Mrs. Morrison without her knowledge, combined with documented research into accidental death methods, he's a flight risk and a potential danger. Bail is revoked. As Lucas was led away, he turned to look at me one more time. His mouth formed words I could read clearly. I'm sorry, too little, too late. In the hallway afterward, chaos reigned. Reporters pressed forward as Patricia made a statement about respecting the judicial process. I slipped away to a quiet alcove where Agent Donovan waited. Conspiracy to commit murder? I asked. The FBI cyber team found more than just research. On his laptop, he had contacted 2 different fixers about solving a problem. One was an undercover agent. My legs felt weak. He actually hired someone to kill me? He was in negotiations when you exposed everything at your birthday party. Your timing may have saved your life. I leaned against the wall, processing this information. The man I'd shared a bed with for 25 years had been plotting my death. Margaret, Kevin Donnelly approached. Your sons are here. They flew in this morning. James and Oliver waited in a conference room, both wearing suits, both looking older than their years. Mom, Oliver embraced me first. We heard what they said in court, about Dad planning to— I'm okay, I assured them. I'm safe now. He's done, isn't he? James asked. Even with the best lawyers, he can't beat this. Gerald Foster's already reaching out about a plea deal, Patricia confirmed, entering the room. Life without parole is the best he can hope for now. Good, Oliver said coldly. Let him rot. I looked at my sons, successful, principled young men despite their father's influence. They were perhaps the only good thing to come from my marriage to Lucas. What happens to the company now? James asked. We rebuild, I said firmly. New leadership, new values, complete transparency. And you as CEO? If the board maintains their confidence, yes, they will, Patricia assured me. The stock's up 12% since your press conference. Investors appreciate honest leadership. That evening, I stood on the balcony of my hotel suite. I couldn't bear returning to the penthouse yet, watching Chicago's skyline glitter against the night sky. The city Lucas had tried to corrupt through bribery and intimidation would survive. His downfall, so would I. My phone buzzed with a message from Janet. Saw the news. Are you okay? Baby kicked for the first time today. Somehow fitting. I smiled, texting back. I'm okay. Congratulations on the kick. New beginnings for all of us. The legal consequences were just beginning. Lucas faced life in prison. His co-conspirators were falling like dominoes. The company would face years of audits and oversight, but I was free. Free from lies, manipulation, and fear. Free to rebuild my life and my company on a foundation of truth. Tomorrow would bring more challenges. Tonight, I would sleep peacefully, for the first time in months, knowing justice was finally being served. 6 months later, I stood in the newly renovated Morrison Industries boardroom, watching Chicago's autumn skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows. The company had been rebranded as Aurora Enterprises, a new dawn, a fresh start. Today marked our first shareholders' meeting since the scandal broke. Ready? Richard Blackstone asked, adjusting his tie. As I'll ever be. The boardroom filled, with investors, many of whom had threatened lawsuits 6 months ago. Now they wore cautiously optimistic expressions as they reviewed our latest financial reports. Ladies and gentlemen, I began, clicking through the presentation. 6 months ago, Aurora Enterprises faced an existential crisis. Today, I'm proud to report we've not only survived but thrived. The numbers spoke for themselves. Stock price up 45%, 3 major government contracts secured, employee satisfaction at an all-time high. Our radical transparency initiative, publishing all executive salaries and company expenditures online, had earned praise from business ethics organizations. Questions? I asked after concluding. Margaret Phillips, representing a major pension fund, raised her hand. What's the status of the legal proceedings? Lucas Morrison pled guilty to all charges last week. He'll be sentenced next month. Prosecutors are recommending 30 years. His co-conspirators have received sentences ranging from 5 to 20 years. And the civil lawsuits? Settled. Insurance covered most claims. Lucas's personal assets, including properties purchased with stolen funds, are being liquidated to compensate victims. After the meeting, Richard walked with me to my office. You've done something remarkable here, Margaret. Most companies don't survive scandals like this. Most companies don't gut themselves and rebuild from scratch. My office, formerly Lucas's, had been completely redecorated. Gone were his hunting trophies and ego wall. In their place, family photos, awards for corporate transparency, and artwork from local Chicago artists. On my desk sat a framed photo from last weekend. James, Oliver, and me at Navy Pier with Janet and baby Grace. The new Morrison grandchild had arrived 3 months ago. A beautiful girl with her father's eyes, but hopefully none of his character flaws. My phone buzzed with a text from Oliver. Dad's letter arrived. Should I open it? Lucas had been writing to the boys from prison. They'd refused his calls but occasionally read his letters, searching for genuine remorse that never quite materialized. Your choice, I replied. I'm here if you need to talk. Patricia knocked on my door. Margaret, the Tribune's business editor is here for your interview. Sarah Chen, no relation to the prosecutor, arrived with a photographer in tow. The Tribune was doing a feature story. The woman who brought down Chicago's corruption network. Mrs. Morrison, Ms. Hastings, please. I'd legally returned to my maiden name last month. Ms. Hastings, you've become something of a folk hero. The betrayed wife who fought back and exposed massive corruption. How does that feel? Complicated. I never wanted to be a hero. I just wanted the truth. You've received death threats from some of the families affected by the arrests. Are you afraid? I was more afraid when I was living with Lucas, not knowing what he might do next. Now I have excellent security and, more importantly, I have truth on my side. Speaking of Lucas, you're attending his sentencing next month? Yes. Not for closure, I found that months ago, but to bear witness. To remind the court of his victims, including yourself, including everyone he betrayed, investors, employees, charities, taxpayers, and yes, his family. Do you regret exposing him? I regret that it was necessary. I regret staying silent. for so long, but exposing the truth? Never. One final question. Janet Caldwell, your husband's former mistress, now works for your charitable foundation. That's an unusual relationship. Janet was another victim of Lucas's manipulation. She's young, raising his child alone, and has shown genuine remorse. Besides, baby Grace deserves to know her half-brothers. Family is complicated. After the interview, I checked my schedule. Dinner with James and Oliver tonight. Tomorrow, breakfast with Janet to discuss Grace's christening. Then a board meeting about expanding our ethics compliance department. My phone rang. An unknown number. Usually I'd let security screen it, but something made me answer. Hello? Margaret? The voice was familiar but weak. It's Elodie Summers, Lucas's former mistress, the one who'd needed an abortion in Switzerland. I saw you on CNN, she continued. I wanted to say thank you. What you did took incredible courage. Elodie, I'm so sorry for what you went through. Don't be. Lucas was a master manipulator. We were all his victims. I just wanted you to know. You saved other women from going through what I did. After we hung up, I stood at my window, watching Chicago's afternoon bustle below. 6 months ago, I'd felt trapped in a cage of lies. Now I ran a thriving company, had reconciled with my sons, and had even found an unexpected friendship with Janet and baby Grace. The phone rang again. Judge Williams's clerk. Ms. Hastings, the judge wanted you to know, we've seized additional assets from Mr. Morrison's cryptocurrency accounts, another $12 million. How did he? Hidden in divorce papers from his first marriage 28 years ago. Apparently he's been stealing longer than anyone realized. His first marriage? I'd never even known Lucas had been married before me. The funds will be distributed to his victims, the clerk continued. The judge thought you should know first. After hanging up, I laughed. Not from humor, but from the absurdity of it all. Even now, Lucas's lies continued to surface like bodies from a deep lake, but they no longer had power over me. I'd transformed from victim to victor, from the manipulated wife to the CEO who saved a company. The cage door wasn't just open. I'd melted down the bars and forged them into something new. My phone buzzed with a text from Richard. Bloomberg wants to feature you in their 50 most influential women in business. Interested? I smiled and typed back. Tell them yes. The turning point had passed. What lay ahead was a future I controlled, transparent, honest, and entirely my own. The Federal Correctional Facility in Marion, Illinois, was a sterile fortress of concrete and razor wire. I hadn't planned to visit Lucas before his sentencing, but his lawyer's desperate call changed my mind. He's refusing to sign the final plea agreement unless he speaks with you, Gerald Foster had said. Without his signature, this could drag on for years. Now I sat in the attorney-client meeting room, waiting. When the door opened and Lucas shuffled in, orange jumpsuit hanging loose on his diminished frame, I barely recognized the man I'd married. Margaret. His voice cracked. Thank you for coming. You have 15 minutes. He sat across from me, hands cuffed to the table. You look good, happy. I am. The company's thriving, your sons are succeeding, and your daughter is healthy. Grace, he said the name like a prayer. Janet sends pictures. She's generous. More than you deserve. I know. He looked down at his cuffed hands. I know what you must think of me. Do you? Because 6 months ago, I thought I knew the worst. Then I learned about your plans to have me killed. I never would have... Stop. My voice was sharp. Even now, you can't tell the truth. You hired fixers. You researched accident methods. You took out life insurance policies. I was desperate. The Torino family was threatening to expose you, not to harm me or the boys. I've read all the FBI transcripts, Lucas. They wanted money, not blood. You chose potential murder over public humiliation. He slumped in his chair. When did you stop loving me? When did you start planning to frame me for your crimes? That's not an answer. Neither is yours. I leaned forward. But if you want honesty, I stopped loving you the day I realized you saw me as disposable. Not when I discovered the affairs. Those were just symptoms. But when I understood that you'd sacrifice anyone, including the mother of your children, to save yourself. I built that company for us, for our family. You built it for your ego, using my money, my connections, my expertise, then trying to erase my contributions. Tell me, Lucas, was I ever more than a convenient resource to you? He was quiet for a long moment. In the beginning, yes. I loved your brilliance, your drive. But then what? Then you were always so competent, so perfect. I started feeling like a fraud next to you. So you decided to commit actual fraud? I wanted to prove I could succeed without you. That. I was the genius everyone thought I was. By stealing money and having affairs. The money started as temporary borrowing. The affairs? He shrugged. They made me feel powerful, in control, while secretly building a case to have me declared mentally unstable. I thought if you seemed crazy, no one would believe you if you discovered anything. Including our sons? I didn't think that far ahead. You never did. I checked my watch. 5 minutes left. Why did you really want to see me? To apologize. For which part? The affairs? The embezzlement? The gaslighting? The murder plot? All of it. He met my eyes. Margaret, I destroyed everything. Good in my life. I hurt you, our sons, even Janet and Grace. I've lost everything. You haven't lost everything. You're still breathing, which is more than you planned for me. I deserve whatever sentence they give me. Yes, you do. Will you? He hesitated. Will you let me write to Grace someday, when she's older? I considered this. That's Janet's decision, not mine. But I won't stand in the way if she agrees. And the boys? They're grown men. They'll decide for themselves. They hate me. They're disappointed, angry, betrayed. But hate? I don't think they have the energy for hate. You're simply irrelevant to their lives now. The words hit him harder than any accusation. His shoulders sagged. Is there anything else? I asked. Your lawyer said you won't sign the plea without talking to me. I wanted to ask, could you forgive me someday? I thought about 25 years of marriage, 2 sons, countless lies, and systematic betrayal. I don't know, I said honestly. Forgiveness isn't about you, Lucas. It's about my peace of mind. Right now, I'm focused on rebuilding what you destroyed. Maybe someday I'll have room for forgiveness. But today isn't that day. The guard knocked. Time's up. Lucas nodded. I'll sign the plea. 30 years, possibility of parole after 20. Good. As the guard unlocked his cuffs from the table, Lucas spoke quickly. I did love you once, Margaret. Before I lost myself to greed and ego. That man you married, he existed briefly. Maybe he did, I conceded. But he's been gone for a very long time. I walked out of the prison into brilliant afternoon sunshine. My phone showed missed calls from the office, but they could wait. I needed a moment to process this final conversation with my ex-husband. A text arrived from Oliver. How did it go? He'll sign the plea, I replied. It's over. Good. Dinner tonight? James and I want to take you somewhere nice. I'd like that. Another text from Janet. Grace said gamma today. I think she means you. I smiled, feeling something shift inside me. The past no longer held power over me. Lucas was just a man, in an orange jumpsuit, facing the consequences of his choices. I had a company to run, sons who loved me, and a granddaughter learning to speak. The future stretched ahead, bright with possibility. As I drove back to Chicago, I realized I felt something I hadn't experienced in years: genuine happiness. Not the performed contentment of a trophy wife, but real joy at the life I'd built from the ashes of my marriage. Lucas had tried to destroy me. Instead, he'd freed me to become who I was meant to be all along. 1 year later, I stood before a packed audience at the Chicago Economic Club, delivering the keynote address for their annual Women in Leadership Conference. The woman who had once played the silent, supportive wife now commanded the attention of 500 business leaders. A year ago, my life imploded in the most public way imaginable, I began. My husband of 25 years was exposed as a criminal, my marriage revealed as a sham, and my company teetered on the edge of bankruptcy. I paused, looking out at faces that reflected my own journey, women who'd fought for their place in boardrooms, who'd overcome betrayal, who'd rebuilt after devastation. Today, Aurora Enterprises is valued at twice what Morrison Industries was worth at its peak. We've created an ethics division that other companies now hire as consultants. And I stand here not as a victim, but as proof that sometimes our greatest catastrophes become our greatest opportunities. After my speech, I was surrounded by well-wishers and aspiring entrepreneurs. Among them was Grace, now walking, her dark curls bouncing as Janet chased after her. Gamma. Grace reached for me and I scooped her up. "There's my girl," I said, kissing her cheek. Despite everything, I'd grown to love Lucas's daughter as my own granddaughter. Janet smiled. She wouldn't nap until we got here. I told her Gamma was giving an important speech. "How are things at the foundation?" "Excellent. We've helped 12 women leave abusive relationships this month. Your story inspired them. Proof that it's never too late to reclaim your life." James and Oliver joined us, both now serving on Aurora's board while pursuing their own careers. "Mom," Oliver said, "Bloomberg's here. They want to discuss that documentary series." "The one about corporate whistleblowers?" "And survivors of financial abuse," James added. "They specifically mentioned your case has helped change legislation in 3 states. My phone buzzed with a calendar reminder. Lucas Morrison sentencing hearing. 2 weeks. I'd already decided not to attend. Lucas had received his 30 years, with eligibility for parole after 20. The man who'd once controlled every aspect of my life was now just a number in the federal prison system. "Oh," Janet said. "I meant to tell you. Derek called. Derek Hansen, my new relationship. We'd met 6 months ago at a charity function. He was a widowed architect who'd lost his wife to cancer. We took things slowly, both of us healing from different kinds of loss. He's cooking dinner for us tonight," Janet continued. "Said something about testing recipes for Grace's birthday party." I smiled. Derek had embraced my complicated family, without hesitation, even Janet and Grace. He understood that healing meant accepting all parts of my past, not erasing them. "Mrs. Hastings?" A young woman approached, clutching a notebook. "I'm Sarah Williams, first year at Northwestern Law. I wanted to thank you. Your case inspired me to specialize in financial crimes prosecution, specifically protecting spouses from financial abuse." "That's wonderful," I said warmly. "We need more prosecutors who understand these crimes." After she left, Oliver chuckled. "Remember when Dad said you'd be nothing without him?" "I remember," I said, watching Grace play with my pearls. Turns out he was nothing without me. My phone buzzed again, this time with an email from the White House. The president wanted to appoint me to a financial crimes task force. "Another government position?" James asked, reading over my shoulder. "Just advisory," I said. "But yes. Taking it?" I thought about the year that had passed. The shame and humiliation of Lucas's betrayal had transformed into purpose. I now had a platform to help others escape similar situations. Yes, I decided. I'm taking it. That evening, as I prepared for dinner with Derek and my extended family, I caught my reflection in the mirror. The woman looking back wasn't the same one who'd dressed for her 50th birthday party. That woman had been trapped in a performance, playing the role of perfect wife. This woman was free. Imperfect, scarred by betrayal, but authentically herself. My phone showed a text from Derek. Made Grace's favorite mac and cheese. Janet's bringing dessert. Can't wait to celebrate your speech today. Proud of you. Below it, a message from Janet. Grace learned a new word. Strong. She pointed at your picture when she said it. And from Oliver. Dad's lawyer called again about prison visits. Told him where to stick it. Love you, Mom. I smiled, applying lipstick, my own choice now, not Lucas's preference. Downstairs, my chosen family waited. My sons, my ex-husbands, mistress who'd become a friend, his baby daughter who called me Gamma, and a good man who loved me for who I was, not what I could provide. A year ago, Lucas had tried to destroy me. Instead, he'd set me free. I walked downstairs to embrace my new life, imperfect, complicated, and entirely my own. The cage was gone. In its place stood something far better: truth, freedom, and the power of choosing my own path forward. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.